Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what time you're going to be watching this video. This video, we're going to cover finding slope or rate of change of a graph or given 2 points. First of all, we need to talk about what slope is. So slope is actually the ratio of the rise or the vertical change in over the run. So let's say slope is the delta, or what we say the change in the rise over the delta in the run of a graph. Okay? Now, this is, in my opinion, a little misleading because this rise means that it's what we're going up, and run means which way we're going, this in the left or right direction. Now, if I have a negative slope, we want to do the delta of the fall of those 2 points over the delta of the run. Okay, so let me show you that. Let's talk about our backup, and let's talk about the different types of slope. So we know the slope is the change of the rise or fall over the change in the run. But what does that mean? So let's look at the 4 different types of slope. So when we look at a graph, I want you to think of slope like you're walking up or down a hill, okay? So that's what we're talking about, is what it's going to look like when we're looking at that graph. The very first type of slope that we're going to talk about is a positive slope. And what a positive slope, so we're looking at positive slope. And so a positive slope means that I want you to think of it like you're walking up the stairs from the left to right. From the left to right, we are walking up the stairs, okay? So the second type of slope is negative slope. And with this one, we are going to be looking at a graph that goes downward from left to right, or you are walking down the stairs. You are walking down the stairs. So you're walking down the stairs. Okay? Oops. You're walking down the stairs. Okay? So you're actually going down the stairs. So this is a negative slope. The third type of slope that we need to know is, some teachers will call it no slope. Some teachers will call it zero slope. You can call it whatever you would like. But this type of equation, we're looking at where you're walking on a flat surface, okay? You're walking along a ground, and there is no change. So this one is what we call no slope or zero slope. And a lot of people will argue about the next one. The next one is really not considered a slope, but we need to discuss it at this point, okay? And it's called an undefined line. And this kind of slope, or it's not really a slope, is a vertical line, okay? And this is called, we call this an undefined slope, okay? It's undefined. These kind of equations will always be x equals some number a, okay? Whereas our no slope lines will always be y equals some number, okay? So those are the 4 types of slope. So let's get into talking about slope itself, or how do we find slope? Well, there's several ways that we can do that. There is the way we're going to do through graphing. There's also a way to do this by using an equation, okay, and given 2 points. So let's talk about that equation real quick. Now, the slope, whenever we look at slope, we identify slope with the letter m. And the equation that we use to find slopes when we're given 2 points is where we take the second point, so y sub 2 minus y sub 1, and we put that over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Okay, so this is an equation that's really important for us, and we'll use this when we're given 2 points. So let's look at some examples real quick. So our very first example, we're going to look at this equation, and we're going to do it both ways. We're going to do it using the graph, and then we're going to use the equation itself. Okay, so let's do the easy way. So the very first thing we're going to do is we are going to find the rise, and we're going to find the run of this. And the way that we do this is we're going to draw a triangle, and we're going to find 2 perfect points, and we'll draw a triangle. Well, we can look at this line, and we know that in this equation, or this line, is a positive slope. So when we find the slope, we know our number must be positive because we are going upwards from left to right. In my example, I've already identified 2 points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a triangle to show you. I'm going to draw a triangle to connect the 2 points. Okay? And now I'm going to create my fraction. Well, I went up 2 units. So my rise is 2 units. And my run is 3 units. So my run is 3 units. So I can say for this line that my slope is equal to 2/3. Okay? Now, let's look at our next equation, our next graph. Before we go to the next graph, let's do this using the points and the equation. Okay? So what I want you to do is, our equation was m equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1, or the delta of the y's, over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Now remember, these numbers, sub 2 and sub 1, just means I want to take the second point and I want to subtract the first points from it. Okay? So this is my x sub 2, y sub 2. This is x sub 1, y sub 1. Okay? So this is my first point because it's on the left, and this is my second point because it's on the right. So we're going to go ahead and do this. So 1 minus -1 over 1 minus -2. Okay? So m equals, well, 1 minus -1. So we're adding the opposite. And that's going to equal 2. And then I'm going to add the opposite for this one. And so 1 plus 2 is 3. And we got our slope as is 2/3. Okay? And so they match. So we actually did that pretty well. Okay? So let's look at our second graph. Our second graph in our example here is going down from left to right, which means that I have a negative slope. Okay, so this is a negative slope. So this is where I was talking about, instead of rise over run, I like to tell my students that it's fall over run. You're falling down over run. The equation's the same. So here we go. So let's draw our triangle this time. I've already identified 2 points. I'm going to draw my triangle. So I'm going to go down 2 units. And this time I'm going to go to the right 1, 2, 3, 4 units. So this time I have a fall of 2/4, which can be simplified to be 1/2. And because I know that this is a negative slope, I've got to make these numbers negative. for this one, my slope is negative 1/2. Okay, let's do it using the equation. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So let's, again, we're looking at our points from left to right. This is my first point. This is my second point. So this is x2, y2. This is x sub 1, y sub 1. And so we're ready to put in our numbers. So we're going to get 2 minus 4 over 6 minus 2, okay, which equals 2 minus 4 gives me negative 2. 6 minus 2 is going to give me 4, and negative 2/4 gives me negative 1/2. So my slope, using the equation, is negative 1/2. If you'll notice, it doesn't matter which way I do this. I can use either the graph or I can use the equation. The reason I show you both of this is not all the time do we have graphs. So let's look at another graph. We're going to talk about this one. And this one, if you'll notice, is a vertical line. So we know that this one is going to be undefined. The reason I chose this one is because I want you to see why it's called undefined. And we're going to do that now. First of all, I can't draw my triangle, can I? Because there is no rise or there's only fall, okay? So I'm going to have to use the equation this time for this one. M equals, well, I'm going to use, this is my first point. So this is going to be my first point. This is my second point. And so this is going to be x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. You ready? So here we go. So I'm going to go negative 2 minus 2 over negative 3 minus negative 3. Okay? So now we're going to do this math. So where's negative? This is going to be adding the opposite. Okay? So we have negative 4. We're going to add the opposite for this one. And we get 0. Now, if you remember from when you were a kid or in elementary school, you learned that you cannot have 0 in the denominator because you can't divide by 0. No number divided by 0 can give me a negative 4. And so that is why this is undefined. Let's look at our next graph, okay, which is this graph right here. And this is our flat surface. We know that because this is a flat surface, we have no slope, okay? Now, again, I don't have a rise, but I do have a run, okay? So I can't use my graph to find this slope. However, I can use the equation again. So let's use the equation for this one. M equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. This is my first point. This is my second point because we're reading from left to right. So here we go. Our y sub 2 is 4. Okay. Our y sub 1 is 4. So 4 minus 4 over 4 minus negative 2. Okay. And so now we're going to do the math. Well, 4 minus 4 gives us 0. And then 4, and then we're going to add our opposite. Okay. And so this is actually going to give us 6. And 0 divided by 6 is 0. So we have no slope. Okay? Everybody good? So all of this talk about slope brings us to the top topic of rate of change. That's what slope is. Slope is the rate of change. Okay? So what I want to do is I want to look at a table and I want to find the rate of change for this. You're going to use exactly the same thing that we just learned. We're going to use the formula for slope, which is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. This is going to be my first point. This is going to be my second point. You can even use this being your first point and this being your second point. It doesn't matter. But I'm going to use the very first two. I'm not going to try to be difficult. So here we go. This is going to be my x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. And I'm just going to substitute numbers in now. So m equals 14 minus 7 over 4 minus 2. Okay, and so now I'm going to do my math. 4 minus 7 is going to give me 7. 4 minus 2 gives me 2. And so my rate of change is 7 halves, or 3.5. Now, why did I change this to a decimal, but I didn't change any of my other ones to a decimal? Well, in this case, we're talking about rate of change. And if we looked at our table was measuring hours versus cost. For example, let's say that I'm in an internet cafe using the internet. For every hour, I'm going to be paying how much money. And that's what this rate of change gives me. So in this case, this cost me $3.50 per hour of time. So that is why we use the word of rate of change versus slope in this context. Okay? But I want you to understand that rate of change and slope are identical. It's just the way that we use the verbiage when we're looking at questions. I thank you very much for watching my video, and I wish you the best and have a great day.